check in with my parent or my family members either 5 or 10 minutes at the end of every session or about every 4 sessions. But I'd always set it up ahead of time so everybody knew the kiddo and or the adolescent or the family member. They always knew when I was going to be doing that. Anything else that you have to add? So most of all, just take a deep breath. Trust the skills, even though they seem weird.
I agree.
Even though they seem weird. And then if you don't feel like you're doing anything and you're sitting in session and you're maybe a little bit bored because you're just doing tracking, it's not necessarily the same kind of boredom that you would use like with some of y'all's work or like thinking about transference or countertransference. Like feeling bored isn't necessarily that means that something is, it just means like maybe you're not as engaged in what the child is doing, and that's hard. And so how can you engage yourself in them just picking the toys up or showing you pictures of their boyfriend or girlfriend on Facebook on their phone, that it's but it's not necessarily the same type of
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
You guys know sometimes I don't make sense because it makes sense in my head, but the words sometimes don't come out. So if it doesn't make sense, send me an email and let me know. But if you're feeling bored, just try to re-engage yourself, bring yourself back to the present moment. But don't try to figure out what's going on, but I'm bored. It's really, the kid's playing, and you are doing something. It just feels really different because the verbal or developmental level of your client is different.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Agreed.
Okay, so next question, we're going to try to keep this as short, or at least break it up. If it's not short, we'll break it up into several videos, so you're not sitting here for 30 minutes. Let's see. There were some questions about schools. I want to go on record saying, talk to Mark as your school program leader. But I mean, we definitely have some thoughts on some of the questions that you asked. And one was, how do you balance all the responsibilities of a school counselor? Yes. You have so many roles as a school counselor. It's a really tough job. I mean, and I think sometimes our other students, the marriage and family or mental health students, don't realize how much it is and how valuable what the role of a school counselor is, and how they working together with a school counselor when you can be so extremely helpful.
I think school counselors, really, their subtitle should just be juggler.
Excellent.
Right? Like,
yes.
It's like, right, and it's just constantly.
All the balls, and you can't let any of them drop.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
Definitely.
It's really challenging.
It's a challenging, and a lot's going to depend on how do you balance the roles. You can't balance, all of the balls you have. So if you think about it metaphorically, you think, what 3 balls this week are the most important? And then I've got to set these other ones down. And then I'm going to juggle these. And then maybe the next week. And then sometimes maybe somebody throws extra ball in there, and you have to figure out how to go with it. But, you can't do everything. You can't be all to 400 kids that are under your. So you've got to get that. And that's why I think, I know Mark talks about in school programs class, like thinking of your program and thinking of like what your impact is on the whole system of the school. So thinking systemically. It looks a lot different. A rapport can look different because you're very visual, maybe not individually for every student, but if you are more present just in the school, and people see you students see you doing things, they see what your program is about, they see what you're saying, and then they interact with you individually when they need to, then that's going to go a whole long way for you when you have to meet with that student for 10 minutes. You're not sure if you're going to see them again. Like if you've built rapport in your school and you have, just people know who you are and know that that you care in general. So what are your thoughts?
I think too, it's school counselor positions are cyclical, right? So there are going to be different demands at different times of year, right? If you're doing any guidance and scheduling at high school, like at registration time, you're going to be really consumed with that. If you help with state testing, you're going to be consumed with that. And so I think it's important to think about your position programmatically and in a really holistic kind of way, and really think about times of year. Like, when are those bigger events happening? It's probably not the best idea to suddenly want to launch a school-wide initiative in the middle of registration if that's something that you need to do, right? It's probably not the best idea to do that during a big testing period, right? And so really understanding like what's happening in the school and how can you best contribute to it.
And I know you haven't had the like cultural class yet, but thinking also about Montana as a culture, and like working at Bozeman High School is going to look a lot different than working at
Statesboro, Georgia High School.
Statesboro High School, true.
Right.
But I can't think of a small town in Montana all of a sudden. I don't know why. But anyway, I can't, like a very rural city in the middle of Montana is going to look a lot different than working at one of the larger schools in Billings or in Missoula or in Bozeman.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you have 300 kids that, you know, versus, you know, have 20 or 30.
Yeah.
That's going to look a lot different. And then whatever those issues are, I mean, if you're in a small town and you know everybody and everybody knows you, that's going to look a lot different than if you're in
True.
a larger town like Bozeman, and what the issues are drugs, you know, a major issue for the teenagers there, or is, you know, stress, or what are the issues for your particular community, and then those balls may need to be balanced more, or you need to emphasize that in your program. Yes. So I'm going to try at ACA to talk to some more school counselors that are my friends, and are good at what they do, not just my friends, but and get some more opinions on that, and hopefully I'm able to get that done, and if they'll agree. So, but refer to Mark, refer to your supervisors at your practicum site, and talk to school counselors. Go to conferences, talk. And then the other school question, I think I answered online. It was about the idea of problem solving versus building rapport, and then moving more into that. And I think I answered that pretty clearly online. Like all three of us, Rebecca, Mark, and I, and then Anna as well, would say that it's going to depend on, you know, what the purpose is, what your student needs are. Some students are not going to open up to you, even if you don't do only have 5 or 10 minutes with them.
Right.
Maybe the first time that you meet with them, they're not going to do anything, and so maybe you will be building rapport. But you could build rapport through doing something, not like playing Uno or something. It doesn't have to be I don't even know. It doesn't have to be just sitting and talking with an adolescent and using your basic skills. You can use your basic skills as you're doing an activity. Then what am I thinking? But and then some kids, you know, they may just be more cognitive, and they may be dealing with bullying, and you give them some components some coping skills that can help, something to say or do when someone does bully them, or what you work on building their self-esteem with some very specific activities, and they may blossom with that. Go with it, you know, go with it, and then just continue to observe the relationship. So there's not this is the way you do it. It's more about, what does it look like in your school? Do you have more time with them? Is the student going to respond more to building a relationship? Or are they going to respond more to, they've already trust you and know you because of the emphasis that you've made in the school, and then they come in? Or they just, you know, really think that what you say makes sense, and they need help, and they go with it. So it depends. Any other thoughts?
Meet your client where they are.
Yes.
Bottom
Pam
line.
is good at putting things, I'm very wordy. Pam's very good at putting all those words into a short, concise message, which is why we're such good friends. She can always figure out what I'm trying to say.
I'm the English to English translator.
They're like, I wish she was with us in theory class. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so and then the other question about school was from one of you guys, and let me find where I wrote it down here. how much to share with administrators or teachers, and that's going to, I mean, ethically as a counselor, you you know, you set a very firm boundary on what you share with your students. Again, what you do and how you do it depends on school to school and the policy, and I would refer to Mark on a lot of those types of questions, because I know not all school counselors keep notes, most of them don't, those types of things, so you're not necessarily going to have notes to release to parents.
Right.
But then keep in mind that parents do have you know, a right to information about their children and adolescent. And so again, you want to keep with the, like, being very honest and upfront. And when you do think it's something that you need to share with a teacher, that would be helpful for the teacher to know, or someone that's, you know, doesn't necessarily have a right to know, then talk to the student about it. And then say, I think this would be really helpful for us to share with the so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm wondering how you would feel about that, or asking, you know, maybe you have a conference, all three of you. Again, I don't have, I would just say, just ask Mark if there's anything that else, like, you need to stick to confidentiality, and that's how you build trust. Of course, when there's any thoughts of suicide or any mention of abuse or anything like that, then you need to talk to parents, caregivers, and then you need to follow your school's policies, but you don't want to do anything unethical as a counselor, which can be a sticky situation sometimes. And that's where you want to trust your supervisor and talk to your supervisors and your peers. And then basically that's all. Anything else, Penny? Okay, let's see. I think that's all the school questions, but then for some reason I'm wondering if there was one more from one person, but I don't think so. If I didn't answer your question, let me know, because I don't see another one on here, but for some reason I'm thinking I remember it. Oh, well. Okay.
So we've gone 22 minutes,
Yeah,
and we
need a
hope
break.
that we have answered at least one of your questions.
we did. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna come back so that you can go get some water, or for some of you, some beverages that you gave up for addictions class that now you can have, or some sugar, or something like that. Okay, bye.